Welcome back to the Freedom Kickstarter podcast. So today's guest is someone who I've actually known for quite a long time online. Really looking forward to digging into his journey, his best copywriting tips, and all that kind of stuff. So as always, I'll throw it over to the guests to introduce themselves. So Kevin, tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
So, Kevin, I'm predominantly email copywriting. Work for quite a varying um, industries: PTs, nutritionists, landscape gardening, tradespeople, stuff like that. Let's say just predominantly email. That's for me. That's where the fun is.
Nice. So obviously I kind of know a bit about your journey and stuff, and it's that cliched phrase, the journey, but tell us about kind of how you got to where you are, because I know that you've had sort of quite a few different career paths before this.
Yeah. So I started life out as a chef many moons ago when I was like 16. I was at college with aspirations of being a PE teacher. That was how it was. That was the life plan, so to speak. And then while I was at college, I got a job part time, just at a local pub. I was a waiter, 16-year-old waiter, getting absolutely brutalised at Christmas by Christmas parties and what have you. And they had no chefs. I was like, do you know, I don't mind doing my hours in there. Quite happy to just, doesn't really matter where I'm earning my £3.14 an hour sort of thing. So, went in the kitchen, and then within 18 months, I just started doing more and more hours. Became head chef at like just before, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks before I turned 18. They made me head chef, and then I was like, do you know what? I'm doing better here. I'm Jack College in. Didn't bother going to university, and I was a full time chef for the next 20 odd years. Moved from there into restaurant openings. I was training, basically opening big restaurant kitchens, 15, 20 brigades. And then from there, I moved into like a chef sales role, touring the country, which is one of the last times I met you. Just touring the UK, selling dough balls for a pizza company, which wasn't fun. And then that's all. It was horrendous. From there, I got made redundant at COVID. I'd already, I think I don't know if I'd already invested in your course or not at that point. I can't remember. And with because I've been following you so long online from your PT days, saw that you made the transition. I was like, I'd love to do something where I don't have to rely on everybody else all the time. So I ended up getting your course, and from there, just I've been on my own steam ever since. And as I say, the rest is history.
Yeah, I do remember actually. It would have probably been in 2020. I think you sort of made that leap because were you doing a bit of work in a pub or something in COVID or around COVID, and then
That was just after, I think.
just after?
Yeah, sort of part time, mainly because a mate of mine, he was running this pub. Or he still does run the pub, and he was struggling for chefs. So he's like, I really don't know what to do. I was like, I don't mind doing a few hours a week for you. I'm not doing any silly shifts. I'll come in. I'll do 9 till 3, 2 or 3 days a week, but that's me done, sort of thing. So I did that just part time, just to help a mate out, really, and it gave me a few extra quid. So it was like, it's all right.
So one thing I think that struck me about you is that you kind of, if you want to go for something, you seem to just go for it. Whereas a lot of people obsess over every last detail and like micromanage themselves and stuff, and you just seem to kind of go, I fancy doing that. I'm going to go and do it. Is that a fair representation?
Um, yes and no. See, on the face of it, it probably is, but I've probably done the wrestling mentally. I've done the mental aerobics and gymnastics for weeks before I eventually say, this is what I want to do. So on the perception, the face of it, it looks like I've gone, right, I'm going to do this and then gone doing it. But I've probably already done the somersaults and circles in my mind before.
Got it. So tell us about that first client then. Who was the client? What were you doing for them?
Um, so the first client I had, that, to be honest, that was before FKS. It was a PT. Sorry, a PT, not a personal trainer. A physical therapist, physio. Um, and because heard about, people getting paid to do email marketing, what have you. He was my physio at the time, so I was like, but through all the marathons and what have you, I was working towards, and I was just like, I could. You're sending all this stuff out, but you're not sending any emails. Why don't you let me do it? I think he paid me like £200 a month for. I think I was writing 2, maybe 3 emails a week, but I didn't really care, to be honest. I was getting paid to do something that I had the foresight of. One day I'm going to do this, and one day I'm just going to focus on this, and that's it. So I was quite happy to earn that, and then I then took over his Facebook ads probably a year or so after that, because he was paying an agency a ridiculous amount of money, and then he had to pay his ad budget on top, but the agency was delivering shocking leads, or shocking lead quality for him. So I just took over his Facebook ads and managed that for him as well at the same time. And then it just snowballed a bit from there, really. Started reaching out for more clients, building up, and getting too many clients, realising that's too much to handle, losing a few clients, and trying to get the happy medium and find how much do I actually want to work, how much do I want to not work.
Well, I think it's that eternal struggle of copywriters in that if you're a tiny bit too busy, you kind of feel, maybe not overwhelmed, but you feel like, no, I need to get rid of someone, something needs to go. The minute you're a tiny bit too quiet, you're like, oh, I could definitely take on another client here. And so you reach out, and then it's just, just going back and forth.
It's funny, I had a chat with my missus the other day, and she's like, you all right? I said, no, my head's too full. I think I've just started working with a new client, and it's a relatively simple offer. It pretty much sells itself. The main reason I've managed to sign him as a client is because he's admitted himself he's very inconsistent with email. So I was like, I can quite easily send a couple of emails a week. I'm working on a sequence on the back end through a free trial for his offer. I was like, I can probably do you a really good job. So I've took him on board, and it's 3 more emails a week. It's not a great deal, but all of a sudden I've just gone, have I taken too much on? But it's only, yourself, you build it up in your own head. And when you sit down, the other day, I spoke to my missus about it, and I sat and wrote down everything I needed. I was like, it's not actually that much. I've not got that much to do. It's just all here rather than coming out through the fingers sort of thing.
Yeah, so there's 2 important things in that. One is definitely just well, first and foremost, take on a new client. A lot of the work is often front-loaded. Even if you're doing the same thing every month, it is that initial research phase. Like that generally only gets done in month 1. And if you're doing it properly, that might be a few hours extra work, possibly even more. Even with AI cutting the time, it will be a fairly lengthy process. So I think there is that. But also what you said about kind of getting it out of your head and onto paper. I found the other day that I was trying to write just a short landing page for an in-person event. And for whatever reason, the words just wouldn't come. And I was looking through my swipe file, and I was looking back at the client's old social posts and all that kind of stuff. And in the end, I was like, right, I'm just going to start writing anything. I don't care if it's crap. And 10 minutes later, I had a landing page that was not great, but it was something. And 10 minutes after that, I'd refined it into what it needed to be. And it was like literally just by starting writing, actually, the minute those fingers hit the keys, so to speak, it was just easier, and the momentum started rolling.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I was doing it the other day, and I wrote half an A4 page of things that I need to do. But I was like, but actually, next month, I've only got that to do, and that won't take me anywhere near as much time. But you just seem to build these things up in your head, and then when you take a step back, in the restaurants, we used to call it like helicoptering, going around the restaurant. When you do the same thing for my work, and I go, do you know, I've not really got that much more to do. It's probably an hour a week, which in the grand scheme of things, most people are killed to just do an hour a week and earn however much more money versus what they would have to do in a regular job sort of thing.
I think that's something that more copywriters could do with remembering, as in, I've done this myself, but I've certainly talked to students who've said something like, oh, my clients asked for an extra 2 emails this week. I'm like, okay, but that's not that much extra work. No. And actually, you're probably getting paid the equivalent of like a couple £100 an hour for doing this. All right, this week, if you work out on an hourly basis, it might be 150 an hour. But again, not saying you can't or shouldn't earn more, but most people would be very, very happy to have that where they could earn very good money, like solicitor type money, doctor type money sometimes, sat in their pants at home if they want to. Like, let's have a bit of perspective.
Yeah, and that's it. And it's funny because, like, as you know, I've got children, but I've now got a 1-year-old, and for me, when my other kids were growing up, because they're in the early 20s now, it was very much, I was never at home. I was in a restaurant 70, 80 hours a week, which sounds ridiculous because it is, but that's the reality of chef life, sometimes. So I barely saw them growing up until them being sort of 14, 15. The only time I really saw them was my 2 days off, even when I lived with them, and I've now got a 1-year-old, and the beauty of being able to be in his life every single day is now saying to me, you don't want to go back. Like, do you know what? Yeah, I might have to work late tonight, but in the grand scheme of things, my son's in bed. We're only going to be sat watching crap on TV, so what's another couple of hours work?
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, and I think you're right. Like, as copywriters, we think that, or when we get into it, we kind of think that we should just have this Bali laptop lifestyle sort of thing. But when you really work out what you're doing and why you're doing it, yeah, you might have days where you work a few more hours. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I think people often freak themselves out in terms of, how many clients do I need? How much work do I need to live the exact lifestyle I want? They think, it's 6 figures this, 7 figures that. And yeah, you can definitely shoot for that and you can definitely achieve that. But like you said, what do most people need to live the lifestyle they want?
That's it.
Probably not that much. And actually, if you can earn what you need working an average of, say, 5 hours a day, which I think is perfectly doable, yeah, that's a pretty good lifestyle.
That's it. I had like my eldest son, he's at university, and I was talking to him a while ago and about what he wants to do when he grows up, so to speak. The first thing I said to him was like, I'm in my 40s, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up, so don't worry about it, not having things figured out. I said, but look at what lifestyle you want to live and decide from there. If you can work 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week, and have the lifestyle you want, who says you've got to go and work 50, 60 hours doing whatever job society tells you to do, sort of thing? It doesn't matter. You do what you want to do. I said the same to my younger son, who's like, he's 21 this year. And it's like, you don't have to have it all figured out. It just doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, if you can pay your bills, you've got a roof over your head, you're eating every day, and you get to live the life you want, doesn't really matter.
More people are realising that, though, I think, which is a good thing. They're realising that, yeah, unless I want a very specific profession, I don't need a degree.
No.
And it's not, I'm not going to sit here and say university is the wrong decision, because I think for some people it's the right decision, even if they don't need that degree. But people are realising, as you say, they don't have to go conventional routes at all, really.
It's funny, I had that exact conversation with my son who's at university, because I think he's going through a not a phase, but like a stage of he's in his early 20s. He's seeing all these new style podcasters or, talking about how they're making 30, 40 grand a month and they're about 16, 17. And he sees that they're selling courses. So he just thinks everyone who's selling courses is a scammer. I was like, you do realise that the exact thing you're doing at university is a much more expensive, elaborate scam in some respects. So I'm not saying you don't need a degree, but certain professions, you don't. Do you need a degree in Coca-Cola to do what you want to do when you leave, which is at the minute he wants to go to join the army? No, you don't. You don't need that degree. But you're going to have 70, 80,000 pounds worth of debt. I'd rather pay £1,000 and make that back in, a couple of months, worst case scenario, than pay 80 grand, never pay it back, constantly in debt, paying it off. And I know where I'd rather be.
I've often said, kind of tongue-in-cheek, that actually if they write off student loans, then I think they should also write off all the course payments that business owners have paid that they've not fulfilled on their promises, really. But so, talking about lifestyle then, what does a typical day or a typical week look like for you?
Well, with a 1-year-old, I don't think there is a typical at the minute. If you'd have asked me this question last week, it would be wake up at about 8 o'clock in the morning, play with my son, and do a bit of work in the afternoon. This week, it's very much wake up at 6 in the morning, try and keep him busy for the next couple of hours until my missus gets up or whatever, and then try and squeeze some work in because he's going through a bit of a he's teething bad. He's not sleeping. Everything typical 1-year-old sort of thing. So I don't have a typical lifestyle as such, but it's very much. But I suppose I'm quite lucky in that respect that it doesn't really matter. I personally struggle if my routine doesn't stay the same, just because I like to have my routine. But then I have the ability to change my routine, and so I'd know most of the time I would normally work maybe 6 till 9 in the morning. It might now move 9 till lunchtime, and then maybe do another couple of hours in the afternoon. But most, when there is a bit of a routine, I probably work maybe 5-6 hours a day tops. Very rarely do I touch the laptop at the weekend, unless one of my clients is going through, we're getting ready for something big, a launch or an event that's being promoted. Then I might do a couple of hours on a Sunday evening maybe. But that is what I love about it, the fact that I kind of go, right, this week I can do a lot. I'm in the middle of sort of developing an offer of my own, so I'm working a bit more because my client work still needs doing. So if I don't work more, then the other stuff doesn't happen. So, yeah, that's kind of where it is, really.
I think it's good to have that option though. Like you said, developing your own offer. I've often found that it's easy to let that stuff slide and not get it done. But then I think if you get yourself in the mindset too much of, I'm going to have this lifestyle where I only work 5 hours a day all the time, that doesn't shift. Like, that's fine. But for me, you've grown the business and you can probably maintain it on that, or you can grow a bit slowly on that. But if you really want to kind of scale, and I know that's a horribly cliched word, but if you want to scale to some degree, whether that's through taking on more clients, starting a mini agency, whether it is like courses and products that you create as well, I think people need to realise that takes a bit of extra time as well. So I've been perfectly honest, like this week being up here, my average working day on a normal week might be probably about that 5 to 6 hour mark. At the moment, because I've taken on a couple of new clients as well, 2 days out for up here, I probably worked 9 hours a day, Monday, Tuesday. It's probably 6 hours when I came up here yesterday. Today and tomorrow doing these podcasts, I'm doing a couple of hours before each day, a couple of hours after each day, and I'll probably work quite a bit at the weekend as well. It's just, that's kind of how it is, but I always feel very fortunate that I'm in control of that, and actually if I wanted less work, I could get rid of a client, or I could go, that launch I'm planning in March, I'll shift it back till June. Like, it's not the end of the world. So I think, again, kind of common theme, just remembering how fortunate we are to have that lifestyle where you do get to choose.
That's it. And I think, I chat to friends of mine who, it's always the case that when I'm in a period where I've decided I'm going to work more for whatever reason, I'll get a message, do you want to go out on the bike? Do you want to go and do something? It's like, can't, I'm busy, I've got, I'm in the middle of this, or one of my clients is away, so I need to get further ahead, so that they're happy that they know everything's scheduled. And the default answer is, well, I thought you only work a few hours a day. I do.
Yeah.
I do only work a few hours a day. This week it's just a little bit different, and this is why. But just remember, I work for me, and I can choose what I want to do when I want to do it, not on your time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, again, it's often difficult because other people kind of don't get it. And this is very much a first world problem, but I've had that before where maybe friends have had a day off and I've gone and met them for lunch, and you've gone, all right, I'm going to head back now. And they'll be, oh, you're not coming to the pub, or you're not going to just hang around here. You're like, well, no, I've got some work to do. And they go, oh, but you work for yourself. And I'm like, well, yeah, and I could push it to tomorrow, but I don't really want to because I'm behind. Or I could do it tonight, but I don't really want to because that's, switch off time. It's time with the girlfriend. Maybe I'm doing something else. So it's about having that balance. I think realizing that actually the idea, I suppose, of to get that freedom, you need some form of discipline. And actually, if you're the kind of person who wants to have a job where they just don't work because you don't want to work, you're probably not going to do the work needed to get to that position.
Yeah.
Which sounds very wordy, but I think it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think so.
Good.
I'm sure you'll find out.
Yes.
I'm sure somebody will tell you if it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, let me know in the comments if that
yeah,
was just a load of shit or if that did make some sense. So in terms of clients then, what's your process for getting clients?
So I'm very much a cold email proponent. I've had clients through referrals and word of mouth, but my go-to strategy is cold email. I just find, I don't know why, I just find that seems to work best for me. I've no idea why. Generally, clicking on Facebook ads, joining email lists, seeing what comes through, figuring out whether I think I can help that business, and then approaching them with my own, so my style on cold outreach, if you will. Which it's quite funny. The guy I've just started work with, last week I started working with him. I set like a record for myself. I got a reply back within 4 minutes, which I was pretty impressed with. I'm not sure if there's many people that get such a speedy response, but when I saw it flash up straight, I was like, nice. And it was literally as simple as, let's book a call.
So what is that style of cold email then? What do you tend to favour?
With my past history in terms of being a chef, I like to just take the piss a little bit, as in just having fun. I've used, whether I should admit it or not, I've used templates and stuff in the past, but I find that they may work well, but they just they're not necessarily me. So I just generally make a scene in terms of just having a laugh. I've had responses back recently because I've been sending out a lot lately, and I've had responses back like saying, I love this. It's just a bit too out there for us. So that's because that's me. I'm not saying that's what it's going to be for you. But yeah, it's literally, it's just a case of having fun. Genuinely just having fun. Not everyone likes it. I've had responses back in the past. I had one lady a couple of years ago, and she was just like, I appreciate that you're trying to be different, but it's not very professional. And there was something else about, what did she say? Something about, forgive me if I sound blunt, but that's just me. You can take it or leave it. I was like, okay, fine. And I responded. I started to type out like a witty response, and I just deleted it. I was like, I was about to give you a really witty response, but I just can't be bothered. I hope you have a good day.
Yeah.
And just left it at that, because I was like, I'm not getting into back and forth with her about it. Like, if she doesn't want to work with me, that's absolutely fine. It's her choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've spoke about it with someone else earlier today, actually, talking about how you just have to kind of be this very sort of boss babe, but you have to be unapologetically you.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if you're going to work with someone, they need to know the real you to a degree. They don't need to know absolutely everything. But if you get on their inbox and you're very, very formal and professional, firstly, I'm just not sure that's going to get a response. But secondly, if they say, yep, great, let's work together, and then you're entirely different behind the scenes, like, it's not... Yeah, I've got clients who I will be slightly more formal with, perhaps, in correspondence, but I'm never going to kind of turn up as a different person when I work for them, just because it's too stressful, really.
Yeah, it takes up way too much mental bandwidth, which, as copywriters, we only have a certain amount anyway, don't we? And if you're using it up just to be somebody else to please a potential client or a current client, then you don't get to put the best into your work, is the way I look at it.
Yeah. And then for the work you're doing for clients, pretty much all email or anything else?
Yeah, it's pretty much exclusively email. Well, that's it. Email and list management. So there's some clients that I manage, schedule the lists and automations. Other clients I just send a Google Doc to somebody else who does that. But I pretty much just touch email. I find that you get to test a lot more That way you can test a lot more ideas, different ways of being creative, and especially because I work with such a variety of clients. Like I work with somebody who does high-end landscape garden design, and these people are paying anything upwards of £100,000 just to have the garden remodeled. So I get to try new stuff that I think will appeal to that audience versus working with people that are personal trainers and trying to combat the social media narratives, so to speak, of diet culture and what have you.
And then in terms of clients, you mentioned quite a diverse range of professions, industries, that kind of thing. So what have you worked in then? Is it pretty much a bit of anything and everything? Like, are there any standout gigs that were particularly like weird, so to speak?
There's not been anything weird as such. I don't think it's pretty much just the fact that it's such a wide variety. I've worked with business coaches, personal trainers, nutrition coaches, design companies, say garden designers, physiotherapists. Like it's just a massive range of industries. But there's not been any random, nothing that's been sort of like, I don't know if I want to touch that.
I think it's always surprising because a lot of people think, oh, if I'm writing copy, it's going to be finance, fitness, health, I don't know, maybe like skincare, maybe some sort of form of coaching. But they often forget there's so many other industries out there that will actually pay good money for copy. Not only that, there are industries that their products or services are much more expensive. So actually, if you're working with, let's just say, a fitness coach who's got a £100 or $100 a month program and they've only got a list of 2,000 people, they're watching every single penny they spend with you very closely because you might be charging £1,000 a month for your fees. You need to get them 10 months worth of coaching to justify those fees. Whereas, and I'm don't know what the setup is, but let's say the landscape gardening company, if their average project fee is 100k, well, you might go 2 months without making a sale through email, but as long as you get them 6 extra sales a year, you're paying for yourself multiple times over.
That's it. Yeah, and that's something that I mean, like that client in particular, I've been working with now for it's like 3.5 years nearly. So a very long time. I'd like to think that's because it's I'm proving my worth, so to speak. But equally, like you said, they might go 2 or 3 months where they don't get a call booked in. I mean, their setup's it's very fine tuned, very well refined over years of testing what works for them. So they might go a couple of months with not getting a call booked, and then they might decide that they're going to run a new offer and get 5 or 6 calls booked just in a week. And then from there, it's what filters down from the qualifying system they've got in place.
How many clients do you tend to work with at any one time?
I used to only work with sort of like 3, 4 at a time, but I've taken on a little bit more recently purely because there's I'm looking to scale a little bit bigger so that I can essentially replace my partner's income, just through things that have gone on there. I was like, she's working in a job like she's a full-time teacher, and she works despite what the industry, the media will have you believe. She works a ridiculous amount of hours. I mean, she earns a good salary, but she works a hell of a lot of hours. Yeah, they get a lot of time off, but there's been times where she'll come home, she'll bath our son, put him to bed, and then she's back working again because there's so much to do still. And it's, in some respects, I think it's a bit of a thankless task. So I'd love to be able to replace her income so she has the choice of going, do you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Whether that means she wanted to do something else, or, be a part-time teacher or whatever. That's kind of, for me, that's the goal. So at the minute, I am pushing quite hard to take on new clients just for that reason.
Got it. And again, that relates back to what we were saying about you have the option to do that as well if you want to, like
Yeah.
turn that dial to get a few more people in the door. Have you got any systems for managing clients? Like, if you get more work, is it like, because I found for my work that at a certain level, I can go between tasks and it doesn't really matter if I waste a bit of time and it's kind of very relaxed. Whereas at another level with a few more clients, all of a sudden I have to be quite systematized with stuff and I am a bit more rigid and structured. Have you found the same, or do you find that kind of that's not so much a thing?
I think what I tend to do with the way I work, I do tend to work the same every week from week to week, unless I'm, like currently pushing for new clients or whatever. But I'll kind of, the beginning stage of the week, I'll have a system of getting all, whichever week's copy I'm writing, get it all pieced together, essentially in a, not even quite a first draft stage, a pre-first draft, if you will, and then start throughout the week. I'll work towards refining it, and it just depends what I'm trying to get done for that week. So at the minute, because I'm doing a lot of outreach, it's Monday, Tuesday, it's purely client stuff. Wednesday, Thursday, it'll be outreach. Then Friday, it'll be a mop up of the week, depending, how much of each I've got done. So I have a system, but it's probably not a very rigid system in terms of I have to have done this by X. It's more of a, this is what I want to have done by then. As long as most of that's done, I'm all right. I can live with it.
And are you using AI at all to speed things up?
Yes. Purely, so I was very anti-AI when it first came out. But more because you could see people just copying and pasting what was essentially rubbish, and passing it off as, look what I've written or what have you, and just through playing about with it, seeing other copywriters how they've used it, I've used it to do a lot of the grunt work, whether it be finding ideas or, I mean, there's only so much reading you can do yourself. I don't care how many CEOs have said, read this book 10 times this week or whatever, or whatever other quotes you hear, but there's only so much reading you can do. There's only so many ideas out there. And if you've got a specific theme or topic that you want to talk about, yeah, you might have some ideas from your research, but I think for me, especially because I work with such a variety of clients as well, finding stories that match that viewpoint for that client versus this client, I've used it I wouldn't say quite a lot more for research purposes than anything else.
That's kind of my stance on it. As in the research side of things, it's sped that up so much. Like working with a new client, I think it was October time I signed them, and one of the things their head of marketing said to me was, "Oh, we've got all these masterclasses that are really going to help you nail the voice and everything." And I thought, "Yep, definitely will." I thought I'll just put them on when I'm walking around, an hour and a half each. And then I thought, I will still do that, but actually that's quite a long process to do. I've got other clients to manage as well. So I just got a transcript of all of them, put them into the AI software and said, can you give me a list? I can't remember exactly, but it was like, can you give me a list of the top 10 pain points a company solves, how they show up every day in people's lives? Can you give me an overview of like the target demographic, any words and phrases that come up a lot, any unique selling points? Gave it kind of about probably 10 prompts to give me sort of 10 to 15 things. And the document it churned out was really good. It was like, okay, it's only surface level stuff, and I'll need to confirm it by listening to all these classes. But all of a sudden, I was like, okay, I've got probably 80% of what I need to start this.
It gives you a decent chunk of something to go off rather than having to, start from the ground up and work all the way. So I spoke to a guy the other day who, he used to be a client of mine in the women's coaching space, but he's moved on from that. He's got rid of the company, and he's now moved into AI. And I caught up with him again the other day, and we were talking about it. I said, look, because he was trying to tell me about how AI will get rid of copywriters. Like, it won't. I was like, so what you don't understand is people have been writing sales copy in some form since 1477. It's, technology's changed, of course it is, but it's still happening. The typewriter didn't kill the pen. it's just a tool, and if we use it well, it'll help copywriters. I genuinely do not believe it'll replace them.
No, and I could get on my soapbox about this for hours, but the output is only ever as good as the input.
Yeah.
And if you're not prepared to study marketing and copy, you're not going to do good inputs. I read stuff, especially on somewhere like LinkedIn. There are so many obvious tells that something's been done by AI, and it will be the long sentence followed by a short sentence that basically just summarizes the last sentence.
Yeah.
If I see that, I'm like, that's been created purely by AI. Or it'll be using a lot of dashes, using a lot of exclamation marks. It's like, those are so obvious tells, and not everyone sees those now, but give it a year or two, everyone will. Like this gig I mentioned earlier, I actually applied for that, and I rarely apply for gigs, but it was someone I really wanted to work with. He put on LinkedIn, I'm looking for a copywriter. And the process was quite interesting because we had to fill in a quick Google form and film a 3-minute video. So did that, sent it in, and out of 100 and something applicants, I think 15 to 20 were chosen for a quick phone call. And I spoke to the head of marketing there, and he said, yep, cool, yeah, everything seems good, we'll send you a test project. Got this test project through. It was a fair bit of work. It was a paid test project, but it was probably about half of what I'd normally charge for that amount of work. But I thought, I want the gig, I really like the client. He's someone I would have probably approached anyway at some point with some cold outreach. So went and did it, put the effort in, did the extra tasks and everything. Got the gig, and the guy came back to me and said, pretty much everyone, I could tell straight away they'd used AI. And he was like, it was just bad. He was like, the words on the page looked okay, but he said it was inauthentic. They'd not done any research.
Yeah.
And it was just like, can you write me an email for this person? I'm like, yeah, because that's just what happens when you use AI. And either you don't know what you're doing with it, or you think, well, I can get away with this and no one's going to tell. Like, people can tell, and the more time goes by, the more people will be able to tell.
Yeah, I have a lot of conversations online with, like, Instagram and stuff with other business owners and what have you, and they keep telling me about how they've cracked the code to make it so that you can't tell that it's AI. It's like, you can. There's tells, not only in some of the grammar and that they use exclamation marks or emojis, but just the actual language itself. It just stands out like a sore thumb. And if you don't know how to refine it and perfect it, then at some point your customers are going to start seeing it, and they're not going to want to work with you because they want to work with you, not a robotic sounding version of you.
Yeah, well, I was at a mastermind in Texas end of last year, and at the dinner one of the nights I got chatting to someone who was sitting next to me, and he and his business partner run an agency, and they do a lot of press and PR and that kind of thing. Like they will do stuff on social media. They do a lot of stuff with email lists, but they've helped people get Netflix documentaries, that kind of thing. And he said, like, what do you do? And I explained it like copywriter essentially, but gave a bit more detail. And he was like, yeah, we've been trying to get rid of guys like you for a couple of years. He's like, we just can't do it. He goes, I would love to replace all my copywriters with AI, but we've hired AI experts. We've had to go ourselves. He's like, it can do some of what we need, but it can't do everything. And even if it does, we still need people to give it the input and to give it once over. Yeah. So, okay, give it a few years, their copy team might go from 20 people down to 3 or 4, but those best 3 or 4 are still going to be okay. And my thinking is that's why I think it's dangerous to class yourself as just a copywriter, because then it's like, well, that's a commodity, you can be replaced.
Yeah.
So like you're doing with the email management, that's another skill that I think, that's not a bad thing for people to learn at all. Whether you learn a bit more about strategy, whether you learn about launch structures and funnels, you can advise on those. But I certainly think we're moving into an age more now where copywriters probably need to be slightly more like consultants and also give advice on the business, not just sit there and write the words essentially.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that.
So in terms of them, you mentioned you're kind of looking for clients at the moment. Is that a case of still doing the same as what you normally do, just a bit of a higher cadence? I know you've got a kind of new offer as well, so if you want to go through that then.
Yeah, so it's essentially the same, but so something that not bugs me, bothers me as such, but in the back of my mind, it's always been that, whenever I've looked for new clients in the past, quote them a fee to do X on a retainer basis with the flexibility of adding in a few other bits if they need it within reason. But then you see so many sort of, especially in the fitness space, so many coaches and personal trainers that just need a bit more help with what they're doing to refine the wording and the written word so that they can get themselves across better on paper. But these people can't necessarily afford the fee for a copywriter on the books. So I played about with it and I thought, about coming up with a course to teach them how to write copy or whatever. And I was like, just doesn't, I'm not interested in that. It's not fun for me. I've got a very, very, limited profile on social media because I just find it boring. I just find it draining. I can't be bothered trying to perfect Canva to make my stuff stand out and what have you. So I was like, what could I do? What could I put together as a ridiculous offer so that a business owner, whether it be in the fitness space or other businesses, would be like, do you know what? That's perfect. So I've basically put together like a 6-month rolling contract of all you can eat emails, as much email copy as you want for 6 months, with a one-off fee up front, and then it's a percentage of the sales it generates. So, and with that, I build all the automations, all the sequences, welcome sequences, launches, what have you, and take a percentage of what that generates. If it generates nothing over 6 months, the worst case scenario, they've got their entire system set up and they walk away with everything set up on the back end and they can just crack on, do it themselves or whatever. Best case scenario, it's cost them a one-off fee up front and they've paid somebody else 25% of money they never had in the first place. So the way I see it, it's a win-win, because I can't for the life of me imagine myself putting together courses or coaching, mentorship, stuff like that. It's more of a let's work together. The better you do, the better I do, and vice versa.
I think the all-you-can-eat aspect is quite interesting. Will that be, are you kind of doing as much as you think is needed? Is it like, if you want 75 emails a week, I write you 75 emails a week? Like, what system is in place for that?
It's very much what I think is necessary, because I don't want to take somebody on board and they be under the impression that I'm going to email the list daily for them, build up however many sequences, automations on the back end, and it's cost them one low fee and that's it. Because of the quality of their list, the offer that they've got, what other systems they have on the back end or in terms of sales pages and what have you. So it might be a case of, people can get daily emails if they need daily emails, but equally, if their list responds better to 1 or 2 emails a week, then that's what that list will get. So it's very much based on the individual, their business, what relationship they've got with the customers. I couldn't, hypothetically, if you came to me and took me up on this offer, I wouldn't just start emailing your list daily, because that, in my opinion, wouldn't work very well for your list because of the rapport you've built with your list over time. Whereas other businesses, it will work. Ben Settle, for example, if he didn't email his list every day, people would be like, what's going on? Why is Ben not sending an email? So it purely depends on the list they've got, the relationship they've got with the list, the offer that they've got to sell. And from there, I have the idea is to have a monthly call with them to grow their email list and talk about what they're doing on, whether they're on socials or paid ads or what have you, to grow their list, because it's, your email list is only as good as similar to, like you said with AI, it's only as good as the input you put in. Your email list is only as good. It's, in my opinion, it's the same. If you're just constantly putting in trash in there, you can't expect to do the numbers that certain online marketers say you should get from your email list if you're just filling it with people who aren't interested in your offer. So it's a very individualized service with a broad spectrum fee setup, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
No, I think I follow. I think you're good. Who's the ideal client for it?
At the minute, I've tailored it for specifically for fitness people, but that's based on basically because of the response I've had to my outreach of late. But it's anybody that's got an offer that performs well in general, but they don't have time to email the list consistently. So I'm literally on thousands of email lists, and I see some brilliant emails come through or brilliant offers come through, but they might come through once every 4 or 5 months when the business owner has time. I'm pretty sure that business owner would much rather take 75% of their sales and have a consistent flow of sales every month than, right, I've remembered to send an email this week, that sort of thing. So it's anybody who's desperate for getting some time to do the stuff that they want to do rather than going, right, I need to send an email. I've not done that.
I like that because I think a lot of copywriters don't see that, as in they might see, as you said, a couple of emails go out and they're like, oh, that person's fine with email marketing. That email sounded good to me. I'm not going to bother reaching out. It's like, well, there are other reasons why people might want to hire a copywriter.
Yeah.
And I had a chat with someone the other day and she said, oh, I'm not really sure, like their emails look good. I'm like, okay, but you don't know the situation. It's still worth reaching out to them. It might be that actually their emails look good, but they're not converting. It could be you can bring something else to the table. Maybe they have decent broadcast emails, but their automations aren't set up. Perhaps they absolutely hate their copywriter and have just kept them on because they've got no one else at the moment. Maybe the business owner writes the emails, but they really don't want to be doing that. Perhaps the copywriter's leaving, but they've not replaced them yet. There's like so many reasons they might want to hire you. You've got to kind of shoot your shot in order to potentially have a go. Don't just see that, oh, actually they're sending a couple of emails and they look okay, I'm not going to bother. Like, I'm not saying you need to go out and write everyone a 10 email sample to show how good you are to prove that to them, but at least put some feelers out there and say, okay, is there something I can do for this company?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the guy I've just started working with is a prime example of that. He does email his list, or he has been emailing his list, but when I look through the history of how often he sends an email, it might be 2 or 3 times a month, and then it gets to Christmas, so he emails a bit more frequently. But then when I thought, you know what, just send him. And, he's the guy that responded in record time. And when I chat with him, he's like, I know I should do it. I've got all this set up. I just don't have time. And chatting to him, his coaching business, it's doing sort of 40k a month ish. I don't know that for a fact. It's just me looking at the numbers based on what he's charging and the numbers he's got running already. That's not including all the other stuff he does. So he might be doing way more than that. And he's like, I just don't have time. I send an email when I get a chance. So you reaching out when he did is perfect timing. And that is exactly what, like you said before. But I'd already done the mental, because I've been on this guy's email list for years. But I'd already done the mental gymnastics of, he's sending emails, so there's no point. And then when I did it, lo and behold, he's like, you're hired.
Yep. You never know what stage someone's going to be at. So I think it's always worth reaching out. We'll go for the final 5 questions in a minute. But first up, where can people reach out to you? Where can they find you if they want to know a bit more about what you do?
So the best place at the minute, just because I'm shocking on social media, would be my email list, emailrenegades.com.
Perfect. Cool. Nice one. So we'll go for the final 5 questions. So first one would be, if you could gift any business, copywriting, marketing, mindset book to anyone, which book would you choose and why?
I think it would probably be, it's more of a psychology book, I think. It's Chimp Paradox by Steve Peters. I've listened to it 2 or 3 times when I used to be on the road driving all over the UK. And then I got the book to read as well, as to listen and read at the same time, just because it is a bit full on. It's a bit intense. It's there's some big words in there that a GCSE educated person like me doesn't necessarily understand. But once you get through that and you start to understand and digest a little bit, it just helps you unpick some of the rubbish that everyone has going on in the brain, and whether it be imposter syndrome or that type of stuff. So it's probably that, I think.
Yeah, I'd second that. It's been probably 7-8 years since I read it, but so I'll give it a reread. But I definitely think that's a good one for people to sink their teeth into. Question number 2: we're going for a coffee and I'm buying. What are you having?
Flat white every time.
Cool. Nice.
Unless I'm mid triathlon season, then it might be a black Americano, just to shave off a few calories.
Got it.
And a little bit of kilos.
Yeah, I'm weirdly similar. I do like a flat white, but I'm the same. It's when you're cutting the calories, it's not better enough than a normal Americano to
No,
justify
that's
it. So. Question number 3: you're in charge of the internet for a day and you can get rid of any social media platform. Which one are you going to choose?
TikTok.
Cool. Yeah,
TikTok every day. Mainly because I don't do TikTok. I just can't be bothered with it. Whenever I have tried to use it, I do find myself just mindlessly scrolling. And when people send me joke stuff, it tends to be off TikTok. I've deleted the app, so now you can't watch it. And I'm like, send it me on Instagram. I use that.
Yeah, you're the second person who said exactly that answer, basically. So I think that's it's a popular one. Question number 4: you're hosting a dinner party. Up to you whether you want to do the cooking or not with your background, but you can invite 3 people, living or dead. Who are you going to invite?
So I wouldn't do the cooking purely because one of my guests, I would get him to do the cooking if I could. Michael P. White, because I think he is legitimately the best TV chef that we've ever seen. Probably Tupac. Especially when I was younger, I was mad into rap music, and it's still pretty much the only thing I listen to. Who would be number 3? Probably Mark Cavendish.
Nice.
Especially after what he did at the Tour last year. I think he would be such an interesting person to speak to, not just because of everything he's done on the bike, but then everything he's gone through in his personal life that was impacted by the bike as well.
So I think the clash of ego between Cavendish and Marco Pierre White might be
that would be comedy gold to watch, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah. No, I'll definitely reserve a seat at that dinner party if there's an extra one going.
Yeah.
No, thank you, mate. Really appreciate that. Appreciate your time.
Me.
Appreciate you sharing your knowledge. So, yeah, anyone wants to learn more about Kevin or reach out, just go to that link. I'll put it in the comments below. Same as always, all the FKS stuff will be down there as well, like free templates, free class, and the course. Any comments, leave them down there. And yeah, as always, likes, shares, subscribes, always appreciated. But yeah, until then, I will see you next time.